Family and fellow soldiers, I'm the Professor, and this is the Moment of Truth. Under white supremacy, medals and awards are all about bestowing instant legitimacy on someone or something. It's a way to try to give it some sort of instantaneous credibility, but without actually having any of the real value that's supposed to come with something like that. That brings us to the BET Awards. A white corporation has a black award ceremony. I found it very interesting that the Best Movie Award this year went to a Bob Marley movie, because just like with Straight Outta Compton, that movie had at least 2 white writers and was produced by Brad Pitt's Plan B Productions. And yet, you have a lot of black people who are getting happy about it. But the main people who seem to celebrate the BET Awards these days happen to be the Negroes who sit out there in Hollywood. The BET Awards is the perfect microcosm for white power in America. You have studios, networks, and stage theaters owned by white people, with scripts and music written and produced by white people, showing images, narratives, and themes that don't honor black people, and the only reason that there's any black people there at all is so that they can get other black people to spend their money with these white media companies. And then they put on a so-called award show claiming to recognize these Negroes, but the award show is owned by yet another white company, which cynically calls their awards the Black Entertainment TV Awards. The BET Awards, or Buffoon Awards as they should be called, are an easy mark, and that's because we've spent a lot of time making them illegitimate. Sure, you can go ahead and have all of these Negroes who they put in these white media productions on a stage together, and they can sit there and actually dress up and pretend as if they're doing something substantive, but the people aren't fooled. It's nothing more than another night for the Hollywood Negroes and other dependents of the white media to get together and pat themselves on the back for, well, I guess having a contract. They call it black entertainment, but black people don't own anything there. And with as many of those Negroes sitting around, and as long as most of them have actually been in the entertainment business, it says a lot that these guys are still sitting around like Oliver Twist with their hands out, asking Massa for some crumbs. And they're going to break down in tears if they can't get invited to the Oscars. Even if you were so desperate as to try to give some small, thin veneer of respectability to the BET Awards, you still can't ignore the fact that in media terms, the BET Awards are basically the island of misfit toys. That's the reason why they've got white corporate sponsorship. As much as Byron Allen and others complain that these same white sponsors and such don't really do business with black people, and at the same time, they're sitting here propping up the BET Awards. Now, what does that tell you? You have to be very careful about awards, because they happen to serve a political purpose under white supremacy. Even though a lot of black folks know that it's all a scheme, it's all a scam, it's all rigged, it's all been predetermined from the jump, nonetheless, when somebody claims that they're an Oscar winner or a Grammy winner or what have you, a lot of black folks get dewy-eyed. And of course, whenever these white companies decide that they're not going to be giving the awards or recognition to this or that black artist who clearly earned whatever accolade is at stake, you got black folks who get indignant and angry about it. Even though black people fully understand what's happening, they are still emotionally invested in it nonetheless. They celebrate if the person who they like wins, but they get angry and frustrated if the deserving party loses. The white media uses its awards to boost its propaganda. Whoever has been the most useful tool of white media propaganda for the year, that's who gets a pat on the head. Even if you don't get the award, they at least say, well, you were at least in the running for licking Massa's boots. But it hardly stops with white entertainment. Recently, Joe Biden gave the Presidential Medal of Freedom to a bunch of his cronies, including Nancy Pelosi and Negro Jim Clyburn. The New York Times says that the Medal of Freedom was established in its current form by President John Kennedy and meant to honor, quote, any person who has made an especially meritorious contribution to national security, world peace, or cultural or other significant public or private endeavors. Nancy Pelosi has presided over the wholesale ethnic cleansing of black people out of San Francisco, and this woman has never been held to account or even called out for it. She smiles every chance she gets. She pretends to put on kente cloth and says Black Lives Matters. Yeah, but not the lives of black people who actually live in her district. James Clyburn has one of the poorest congressional districts in America, so why the hell is he getting an award for anything? America's favorite sharecropper gets out there, buck dances for Massa. He's not being rewarded or recognized because of what he's done for black people or even for voters in general, but because of the fact that he's an effective cog in a white political machine. And Biden also gave a medal to Michael Bloomberg. And what did Bloomberg do that qualified him as an especially meritorious contribution to national security or world peace or cultural endeavors? I remember when that racist boldly defended stop and frisk, and when told that he was doing nothing but harassing innocent black people, Bloomberg said that more black people needed to be stopped and frisked.
But you come back, there is this business, it's a couple of, one newspaper and one news service, they just keep saying, oh, it's a disproportionate percentage of a particular ethnic group. That may be, but it's not a disproportionate percentage of those who witnesses and victims describe as committing the murder. In that case, incidentally, I think we disproportionately stop whites too much and minorities too little. Well, it's exactly the reverse of what they say. They are. I don't know where they went to school, but
Mike the Bigot Bloomberg was the boldest, loudest defender and supporter of stop and frisk, and he did it knowing full well that it was being used as nothing more than a policy tool to harass and arrest innocent black people. The entire objective of stop and frisk was to disrupt and interfere with the daily lives of as many black New Yorkers as possible. It was all meant to make it far more difficult for black residents merely to exist in the city. The point was to embolden the police to accost, harass, humiliate, and assault black people, which was the entire point. It wasn't about public safety. Stop and frisk had unquestionably been proven not to make the public safer. It was simply mass harassment. And that's what Bloomberg liked about it. And this is the guy who Biden gave the Presidential Medal of Freedom to. A racist puke who happily trampled all over the freedoms of black New Yorkers and planned to do so if he could become president. But then again, Biden wrote the '94 crime bill, and he also engaged in the same anti-black rhetoric for the exact same reasons, and just like Bloomberg, he's trying to run away from his own racist record. So no wonder Jim Crow Joe identifies with Bloomberg so much, giving this guy a medal. And of course, absolutely nobody in the white media brought up the inconvenient truth of Bloomberg's record, or Nancy Pelosi's record, or Negro Jim Clyburn. They leave that all out. Doesn't matter if it's a complete shrieking fraud. All that really matters is we're giving these guys a reputation whitewash. That's what the awards are for. Oh, we're just wiping the slate clean. It's not at all surprising that Biden's giving medals to people who did nothing to earn any sort of recognition or valor. After all, Barack Obama gave the Presidential Medal of Freedom to Biden in recognition of his, well, I really don't know. That's the reason for this morning's briefing. Because while we can all roll our eyes and scoff at buffoon entertainment television giving themselves awards, at the end of the day, white power uses these awards for purposes that are no laughing matter at all, not merely for the sake of pushing propaganda, but for the sake of pushing anti-black policy and trying to whitewash it and trying to give praise to the ones who carried it out. Obviously, we don't get happy about any of these propaganda displays, be they at the music awards or in the White House, but the reality is that white power is misusing the concept of the award. There's nothing wrong with an award, but white power is misusing it. What's called for is not a rejection of the concept of having awards, but rather a correction of the concept of having awards. Because until black empowerment has reasserted itself and restored sanity and justice to the public venue, all of the awards the white power gives out in its attempts to legitimize itself will always come in last place. Good day, and be one. I'd like to take a moment to mention some of our contributors: Frederick Richburg, Tyrone Jones, Anthony Pollard, Shrampstein, and Mark Singleton. Salute to them, and thank you to everyone for listening, liking, and sharing this message. Black empowerment only exists because of you.